Hello, welcome back to the Inside Elland Road podcast with me, Joe Donoghue, and YEP Chief Football Writer Graham Smith. Wherever you're listening from, whether it be down the road in Beeston, the Philippines, or the International Space Station, thank you for your continued support. It really is the highlight of mine and Graham's week. And please do remember to get your comments in wherever you're listening or watching. I promise you we do see them, even when you don't tag us. And that includes one listener who replied to Graham this week calling me Short King Near, which I think... is a brilliant little portmanteau of two nicknames / likenesses that have been given in recent weeks. Onto the football then. 6 points, 5 goals, 2 wins, and none conceded since we last spoke. There were to be no cruel late twists in either of Leeds' matches against Sheffield Wednesday or Norwich City, not like there was for one half of this podcast's beloved Glasgow Rangers on Thursday night. We did have some very good news on Thursday afternoon, though, as Daniel Farke hosted his pre-match press conference. By the way, a pre-match presser for a Monday night game on a Thursday. And you've got Wolves have been won and lost in a shorter space of time. Anyway, Pascal Struijk is fine. He's better than fine, actually. He might even be back in team training next week, which is excellent news because Graham did threaten to boycott this week's pod if Struijk was injured for 3 months, as initially feared, on the grounds that he would be mourning. Isn't that right?
I was going to go on Struijk.
Oh.
Yeah, good news that his precious tendon is unaffected. Struijk's tendon. It sounds like some sort of medical discovery, doesn't it? Pascal's tendon actually would be better. That sounds more like Greek or medical. Yeah, tendon's fine. So he's not going to be out for 3 months. We can all calm down. We can stop scouting for centre backs, or maybe not, as Daniel Farke said in his press conference. A bit more interesting, wasn't it? The pre-Burnley press conference, which came less than 24 hours after we spoke to him last after the Norwich game, but it came 72 hours before the Burnley game, something like that. Yeah, interesting stuff on transfers. But I mean, firstly, the Struijk thing is big news because Ampadu needs to be in midfield. We've discussed that at length. Pascal needs to be at centre back. He's just important for the build-up. And if Junior Firpo is going to get back in, which I think he should after the way he played and the difference he made to Leeds' build-up and attack against Norwich, then the left side would be fully functional, fully operational again. The Death Star would be fully operational just in time to blast some Turf Moor Ewoks on Monday night.
Yeah, that's good. I was very, very pleased to see Junior back in the team and also playing to the standard that we know that he can and has done throughout the past 12 months because, you know, we've discussed it at length. He's discussed it himself. Farke has also discussed it, that Junior Firpo is a player who thrives on having regular rhythm. So when he's taken out of that rhythm, maybe with the Blackburn away game this season, you can see that maybe there's a little drop off in performance. So for him to come back into the team and basically, as you said in your verdict, just get his head down and think, you know, I'm just going to run at you. It really changed the game. But obviously, the big news from yesterday's presser being Pascal Struijk being fine. He was. He's been out doing some individual work. So, you know, that would suggest he's running already, which means that, you know, that the hamstring injury isn't severe at all. 3 weeks is probably sort of like the upper bound of when he'll be back on the pitch. If he's back in team training next week, then, you know, there's the potential that he could be back for, you know, that FA Cup game or maybe even Cardiff at the beginning of February. Yeah, very, very positive news because, you know, while Rodon and Ampadu were very, very good last season when Pascal got injured, I do feel as though it had an impact. You know, how many times did we say that partnership of Glenn Kamara and Ilya Gruev just maybe wasn't as, I don't know, dynamic when it came to passing, or, you know, what wasn't, it didn't really offer the same as what, you know, when Ampadu's in there. It's so important, I think, and Farke realizes this, to have Ethan Ampadu in midfield. And I'm grateful that he's been pretty transparent on that. So yeah, we'll have to see if they do add another centre half, because Max Wöber has not been reliable this season because of injuries and other factors. So yeah, we'll have to see in the next, 10 days of the window.
Yeah. You know those memes where it's got like the brain activity and like it, gives you 4 different options, and the 4th option is one where like the brain is communicating with the rest of the universe, whatever. For me, it's like Gruev Kamara, absolutely fine. The brain is ticking along. Ampadu Gruev or Ampadu Kamara, maybe slightly better. Rothwell and Tanaka, again, pretty good. But Ampadu Tanaka, I mean, that is Leeds communicating with the universe, isn't it? For me, it's the ideal midfield. And I have to say it every time. It feels super harsh to Joe Rothwell because he's been great. He's been so much better than we anticipated, and he's kind of shut us all up on that note. But I really do like the idea of Ampadu and Tanaka getting a real run between now and the end of the season. So it feels a little bit like Leeds have managed to roll with the punches this season with injuries, haven't they? They've had bad news at times, like the whole losing both of your defensive midfielders to knee injuries within the space of a couple of days. But they've got both players back without complications, back quicker than expected. They dealt with it in the meantime with a midfield of 2 8s. Now Struijk was potentially out for 3 months. He's not going to be. He's going to be back in team training. Like it feels like they've managed to avoid disaster a lot this season. And even when Firpo's been out, Byram's come in and been very, very solid. So think of the wingers. When Solomon's maybe not quite been up to speed, Ramazani was there building up some momentum. Dan James and Willie Gnonto have dovetailed pretty well. It just feels like, I don't want to say they've got away with it, but when you have a fairly small squad, injuries can be really devastating. Like Sheffield United, I think, have struggled a lot more with injuries and struggled to cope with injuries, and that's why they're doing kind of wholesale. They've gone to Costco in January rather than just nipping out to the Tesco Express for a couple of bits. So yeah, it feels like Leeds are still in pretty good shape despite the odd problem here and there.
I'll tell you what, I'd much rather go to the Tesco reduced section and pick up an Ao Tanaka as opposed to going to Costco and buying in bulk players.
Buying a bulky need. Tom Cannon.
He's not bulky Tom Cannon.
I thought that's what you were saying.
No, and I wasn't saying that. Maybe they've maybe paid over the odds. I think, £10 million. It's not an insignificant sum for a Championship team to be paying. I do think he'll be a good signing for them, but it's maybe a little bit high for my liking. But of course, it's like Farker after making a comment on something like that. But it's we don't complain about it. It's not really my topic to talk about players at different clubs. But yes, Emi Buendia was one of my better players when I was at Norwich. Oh, Daniel, you said you weren't going to. Oh, but you have. Oh, right, okay. No, I it's not a bit of business that moves me. Tom Cannon to Sheffield United. Yes, he's going to score goals. And now that I've said that, he'll probably get one at Bramall Lane when Leeds go there next month. But it's the thing for me is if I'm in a recruitment department of a team who are first or second or third in the Championship, I'm signing players that I think are going to be good enough for me in the Premier League. Like we've discussed, Ao Tanaka, Ethan Ampadu, I think could be good enough to be a starting midfield double pivot in the Premier League. I think their attributes complement each other really nicely. We've said as well, Willie Gnonto has proved it in the past. He can be a Premier League player. Largi Ramazani has the potential, certainly, if he gets some regular minutes, rhythm and consistency, to be Premier League potential. Mana Solomon, he's really beginning to show that he's actually too good for this league. I don't think Tom Cannon has proven that he's too good for this league yet.
No, but if Kiefer Moore, if your big Galoot up top is about to be out because of surgery, then you need another Galoot, and maybe they've just decided. Where I agree with you is the price point. Shelling out that much money in January for a player like that doesn't feel like a tremendous move. If he was on loan and you had to pay a hefty loan fee, then that's probably fine. But maybe that was just maybe that's what they had to do to get him, and they felt that he was the best kind of Kiefer Moore alternative. I don't know. I was actually at Bramall Lane on Saturday. We haven't recorded since then, have we? And
No.
It was funny, seeing Norwich play against Sheffield United and then seeing Norwich play against Leeds. And the old adage that everyone races their game for Elland Road certainly felt true to some extent, because the Norwich that played at Bramall Lane were just appalling. It was a crime against football, and they should have been made to walk back to Norwich. But they showed an awful lot more at Elland Road. But Sheffield United didn't have to be great. But you know what made a massive difference for them? Gustavo Hammer. He was phenomenal. Just every time he got the ball, he was dangerous. He had the ball just over halfway and came very, very close to scoring. Angus Gunn just about got back and tipped it over the bar. There was a little flick to put someone clean through, like a little backheel flick. He showed why Leeds kind of fired a shot across the bows of Bramall Lane with that offer in the summer. And, a player like that, would just be tickety-boo for Daniel Farke in January. That's why he keeps saying, he's starting to say it. It's like he's ramping up a little bit. I almost expect him next week to say, yes, we now need a number 10. Because he's kind of gone from saying we expect a quiet window, but we'll stay awake, to if there's perhaps a player in one or two areas where we're maybe slightly lighter, we would maybe look at doing something, but only if he improves us, to saying, yes, the three positions in which I would consider strengthening if there was quality are number 10, centre back, and striker. But he majored on the number 10, didn't he? And the fact that they don't have a player like Brendan Aronson, but they could also do with a player dissimilar to Brendan Aronson in that position. He wants one, doesn't he? He really wants a number 10. I wish he'd just say it. Just say it, Daniel, with all of your heart.
Maybe he is saying it, but just, in close quarters. He's maybe not saying it to the press.
Maybe he's doing what I do in my birthday month, which is start to talk around subjects like, oh, have you seen that exercise bike that we looked at? It's come down in price.
I'm not getting you it. I know it's next week. I'm not getting you it.
And then just leave it there. Well, have you seen Malevolence have got a like limited edition football shirt out? That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. It'd be even more interesting to all of the listeners. What is the birthday coming up?
It's my birthday.
Yeah, I know, but come on, give us a number.
The meaning of life.
Okay. To anyone who doesn't know or understand that reference, go on. Elaborate.
42 next week.
There you go. It's a very, very good number. They say life starts at 40.
It's a grand age. I'm still waiting for it to start.
Yeah, no, that'll be nice. You doing anything nice for it?
Well, thank God there's no transfer window deadline, because that has occurred in the past, and it has made me very sad indeed.
Kind of your fault.
Probably just a nice meal with the family. I don't want any effort. Don't want any fuss, really. I don't know what. I'm a bit embarrassed to be talking about it. Don't want anyone sending me loads of messages on my birthday, wishing me happy birthday, or saying what they like about me. Picking one thing that they really like about me and sending that to me on social media. I don't want all of that.
We did have another member of the Leeds press pack celebrate a birthday recently as well, didn't we?
Yeah, it was a big one.
You congratulated him publicly, didn't you?
I did. To be fair, I was tipped off by an insider, a BBC insider, that it wasn't. In fact, I knew that it wasn't his 60th because Popey told me his birthday was coming up, and I said, "Oh, are you 20 for the third time then?" And he said, no, not 60. But this member of His Majesty's BBC gave me a nudge and said, you should say happy 60th, because it'll really wind him up. And I said, well, I'll go one better than that. I'll say it publicly for everyone to see. God bless him. Great old guy.
Operative word there being
great.
Yes, correct. Because again, remember, he does have hands like shovels, and he does listen to this podcast. So, we have to be very careful And I would like to say, on behalf of all of the Inside Ellen Road hosts, producers, editors, all of those individuals, which are definitely not one person, we wish Adam Pope a happy, not 60th birthday. Should we move on to more Leeds United topics? Actually, no. Let's stay with what Farke said on the number 10 situation. Actually, do you think that he has in mind Emi Buendia? And if so, because that might be a difficult deal to do for various reasons, do you think that he maybe has alternatives in mind?
Part of me thinks that he's a bit like Homer Simpson when all he could think about was steak, and Marge said to him about some chores or other, and he said, I'd love a steak. Like, yeah, great. I'd love a steak right about now. Something like that. I wonder if Daniel Farke sits in these meetings and hears these ideas and then says, yes, absolutely, I'd love Emi Buendia. Because we know that in the summer, there was a period of time spent waiting and trying for Buendia, and it never happened. And
some would say a Buendia never came. Hey, any linguists out there? Yeah,
they might. But you understand that he knows what he'd get with him. I think we all know as well that if they did get Emi Buendia, they'd probably win this league by, I don't know, between 6 to 10 points. A conservative estimate. I think they pull away in a way that they haven't managed to yet this season. I think that would just put them over the edge. I think it would turn draws on the road into wins, and probably home wins by 2 goals into home wins by 3 goals. He just would be the missing piece of the puzzle for me, or a player of his ilk. But him specifically, Farke knows exactly what he'd get, and I guess everyone just has their favorite thing, don't they? Whether it's a favorite spoon for your soup or your favorite cordless drill. Like, if you know what it does and it's worked every time previously and it fits, then why wouldn't you want it? I understand Leeds saying, well, actually, we think he's probably going to go to La Liga because, 1, it manages expectation. 2, it lessens the potential for you to look stupid at having chased a player that you weren't going to get. And 3, because what they've experienced since they dropped into the Championship, Leeds, is a huge number of players saying no to the idea of playing in the English second tier. Players in the Premier League do not want to play in the Championship. So many of them see it as a retrograde step. They see how long the season is. They see the financial factor and the wages, the what would you call it? The brutality sometimes of the league.
The rough and tumble, yeah.
The rough and tumble, some of the places you have to go, some of the pitches you have to play on. And then they look around them at Premier League and where everything is shiny and new and exciting. And you're so handsomely rewarded for your efforts, for your couple of days training a week or whatever. Bloody footballers. But I can understand why Leeds would take the kind of pessimistic tone, because lots of their targets since they dropped down have said no. They've said no, thank you. They haven't all been like Largi Ramazani, who thought, I want to go and play in English football, and this is a good chance for me to get good minutes at a big club that might end up in the Premier League. It's a good route for him into the Premier League. For lots of others, they could go to a top league straight away, whether it's the Premier League or a league adjacent in Europe that makes it more likely for them to get to the Premier League in the next year or two. It's just the reality of it. But you just wonder, because there's that piece that you wrote, isn't there, about the La Liga and who could realistically afford it, and how realistic it is that somebody in La Liga plows that kind of finance into a player that's played so few minutes this season.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, La Liga has, for each club, depending on the revenue that they've been able to generate in the previous financial year, there is a salary cap. So you can't, basically, it's there to stop clubs spending beyond their means. Now, of course, Real Madrid and Barcelona decide that doesn't apply to them, but pretty much every other club do have to abide by those rules. And for obvious reasons, Real Madrid and Barcelona are not going for Emi Buendia. There are others. I was speaking to Jamie Kemp, who works for Opta. He's an editor there, but he's a very, very, very good person to know with great knowledge on Spanish football. And he was saying that there's probably about 6 teams who'd be looking to get him. From a sort of like a hypothetical standpoint, Rayo Vallecano and Getafe, both Madrid-based. And I'm not saying that Leeds isn't as nice as Spain's capital city, but you know, I've been to Madrid. It's all right, yeah. And the fact that Buendia used to play for Getafe, Rayo as well, you know, they've just got James Rodriguez's wages off the books, so that's opened up a massive chunk of financing that they didn't have previously available to them. Who else was there? Villarreal and Girona possibly could be interested. Deportivo Alaves have just got a new manager, and they're lacking midfielders and attackers. You could see why it would be attractive to Buendia. You know, he's been in English football, 6 years now, or near enough. He'll have made a nice living as a Norwich Championship winner several times or twice, a Premier League player for the past 5 years. And, you know, he's played Champions League football with Aston Villa this season. You could see why a move back to Spain would be attractive. But again, you can also see why a move to reunite with Farke, who's won the league with twice before. We know how fond Farke is of players that he's worked with previously. And if it's a signing that Farke really wants, then he's going to do everything he can to persuade Buendia that this is the right move for him. And also, when you're talking about structuring a deal, it looks as though Buendia is not in the future plans at Villa Park. So a loan with an option, not an obligation, an option to buy in the summer if Leeds go up, and it's at like a palatable 20 million or something, I think could satisfy all parties. Now, again, that might not be the case. There might be, you know, financing issues there. Villa might want a lot more than that. But you know, these are the sorts of things that are discussed in sort of the early stages. But ultimately, you can't get to that stage unless Buendia wants to play for Leeds, unless he wants to drop down into the Championship or accepts that that's the best offer available to him. So you kind of are waiting for him to make that decision.
It mirrors the summer in a lot of ways, doesn't it? Leeds kind of hanging on and being patient. Farke talked about his 3 rules that a player has to tick the boxes. You know, he has to be quality that is better than what they've got. He has to have the right attitude and buy into what Leeds are doing completely. He doesn't want a bad egg, and it has to make sense financially. And only if a player satisfies those 3 conditions will, you know, they sign off on a move. But we are now entering the final week of January, and then there'll be a couple of days of February, and then the window will be over. You can understand the fan frustration when your manager's saying things like, you know, we will look. Mm-hmm. I almost think he's getting done by his own phraseology there, because they have been looking. They are looking. You know, they're well aware of who they'd like, who's available right now, and who might become available between now and the end of the window. It's just like the summer. It's just a waiting game. It's not like Leeds United are today going to start looking for a number 10, or in the next week we'll find some time to go and look at number 10. They know exactly who there is and who would fit and who they might be able to get. It's just a case of if any of those deals become a possibility between now and the end of the window. I certainly don't see them signing 3 players unless there is a setback with Bamford that says he's going to be more than the 2 or 3 weeks we're expecting. B, there's a setback with Struijk or another centre back, or in another position they suffer a terrible injury. I can't see them signing a striker, and I don't think I see them signing a centre back either. I think the only possibility is really at 10, because that's where the need is, and I really think Farke wants one. And I wonder if that might just drive things. And the 49ers should be thinking whatever it takes at this stage to get this over the line, because it has to happen this season. It absolutely has to happen. And whilst I think it'll happen, and you think it'll happen, and they probably think it'll happen, and Farke thinks it'll happen. It's never certain. You're never there till you're there. And the what ifs are just terrifying. What if Brendan breaks? He's been so durable this season, and he's played so much football. He scored so many goals. He's divided opinion, certainly, but he's done a job, and he keeps doing a job, and he's been reliably available, which is a commodity that you can't really underestimate. Because if he hadn't been, Leeds would have been scratching around for a solution. Trying alternative things and being a bit more experimental, and no one knows if that would have worked or resulted in some of the football we've seen that Aronson's been involved in, and some of the goals that he scored. Like, we don't know that those would have come from another source playing in a central position. So I definitely think you can't overlook his contribution this season. But what if?
To that end, he's had his moments, hasn't he? You think about that Derby goal. That goal doesn't come about unless he makes that clever run, and he's got that interlinking and that understanding with the rest of the attackers. And also, to that end, there's only one player who's created more chances from open play than Brendan Aronson in the Championship this season. Which, I mean, it might surprise some people considering that Aronson's only got 2 assists, but he is in those positions where he's laying on chances for his teammates.
Who is that player, by the way?
That's Georgi Chakvetadze at Watford.
Player.
He is a player, yeah. And he has created. So he's created 42. Brendan's created 37. Then you've got Finn Azaz and Ben Doak both on 36. Total chances created. Chakvetadze's on 61, whereas Brendan has 42. So yeah, a lot more from. He sort of adds something from set plays as well, where Brendan doesn't. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about the value that Aronson brings. And if you weren't to watch Leeds and you were just to look at the numbers, you'd be going, that Aronson's on for player of the season. He's got 7 goals, he's created the most chances, he's top of many other metrics. That's all perfectly valid. There is also just that nagging thing at the back of your mind, which is like, yes, but there are occasions where he gets into the final third and just maybe doesn't make the right pass, or kind of doubles back on himself, or runs down a blind alley. And he can be frustrating at times. I'm not sure he's someone that you'd stick with in the Premier League at number 10. In fact, no, I am sure you don't stick with him at number 10 in the Premier League, but he's an option to have. That is why I think Farke also wants a 10, somebody who's different, maybe a little different in profile, someone who's, I don't know. I mean, I've said it since Leeds sold Jorginho. You need someone who's a bit more big-bodied in that position, just to buy yourself that half a yard, just to have that understanding with the centre forward that they're playing on the shoulder. The number 10 receives it on the half turn on the edge of the box, again up against a deep block, receives it on the half turn, holds off his man, and is able to thread it through, because the striker knows he's going to hold it off, he's going to open it up onto his left foot or his right foot, and he's going to thread you in. I think some of Brendan, or most of Brendan's chances, don't come as a result of that. It's kind of more direct, and he's running at you, and then maybe playing in one of the wide players. So, and I just don't think it's a bad idea to have variety in that position. Yes, you could have Willy Gnonto in there. Again, it's not a perfect fit, and if you get 1 or 2 injuries in the wide positions, you need Gnonto there. I don't like Joel Pirro as the number 10. I know that Farke says he interprets it as a loose striker. Yes, he does, but I don't like the way that he interprets it. So don't do it. I think you just need a different profile, just to mix things up. I'm not saying to replace Aronson. And there will probably be an occasion where, if they do sign a number 10, if they sign a Buendia, for example, then there'll be games where Aronson starts and the number 10 doesn't, because Aronson's more durable. Buendia, for example, hasn't played an awful lot of football, so he might take some time to get up to speed. That's kind of where I sit with the whole number 10 debate.
And there will be other options as well that will have something different to Aronson. But it's obvious that Farke is not going to be rushed. He's not going to be told what to do. And he's going to be content to wait for a player that he thinks is a difference maker. That's what we know. We know that was the case in the summer. We know it's the case now. There are lots of conversations taking place behind the scenes. He talked about those meetings he'd had and daily conversations, and Greta Steinson was at Thorpe Arch last week. You know, the big cheeses rolled into town for the midweek game against Norwich. I wouldn't be surprised if they were still here for the Burnley game, to be honest. That's probably one you don't want to miss if you're a big cheese. So yeah, let's just see if they can come up with something. And like we keep saying, might not be a disaster if they don't, but it might.
Speaking of potential disasters then, Burnley on Monday. We're obviously going to have to preview that. Disaster at Turf Moor for Sunderland last weekend, wasn't it? 2 missed penalties, or rather 2 saved penalties by James Trafford. Wilson Isidore not exactly ingratiating himself too well with the travelling Sunderland support. Do you think it's going to be 0-0 at Turf Moor on Monday, or do you think it could be a goal glut?
I don't think it'll be a goal glut. They've drawn more than they've lost at Turf Moor. They're unbeaten on the turf with 6 wins and 7 draws. Lots of 0-0s, some 1-0s. They don't concede very many goals at all. They don't score very many, except when they're at Plymouth. And yeah, Trafford is obviously one of the outstanding goalkeepers in the division. There was an absolutely tremendous video taken by a Burnley fan who was right next to the Sunderland fans, and the video just encapsulated everything that is great about football and football fans. Penalty awarded, Sunderland fans giving it like full beans, giving it big licks, giving it all the hand gestures, celebrating. Penalty save, Sunderland fans crestfallen, wanting the ground to swallow them up. Burnley fans giving it to them. A second penalty awarded. Sunderland fans, the hand gestures are back out. They're back on top of the world. There's no way we'll miss a second one. There's just no chance it'll happen again. Penalty gets saved. Burnley fans go absolutely bananas. Sunderland fans look like, you know, they've lost a tenner and found a penny. And Calvin Phillips liked the video actually on Instagram, which was maybe what brought it into my algorithm. But I find that funny that a professional footballer would find it so amusing, find such shithousery so amusing. Remarkable stuff though from Trafford. I mean, that is, you talk about earning a clean sheet. Is that, we didn't see the rest of his performance, but unless he was like really dodgy with his kicking and dropped a couple of catches, like that's probably a 10 out of 10, isn't it? 2 penalty saves.
Yeah, 2 penalty saves and a clean sheet. Like, you don't really get much better than that as a goalkeeper.
No, and having a goalkeeper like that, I tell you what, it imbues a certain level of confidence from a defence and in a fan base, so that you probably don't have situations where the ball spoons up into the air, the whole stadium has a ripple of nervousness around it, and then ironic cheers go up when your goalkeeper catches it. Like that just doesn't. I just don't think that's happening for Burnley. Very, very different narrative there when it comes to goalkeeping, and. But yeah, for Sunderland, what an absolute disaster that was. I mean, what an opportunity wasted. And they are, you know, they're really well placed. They're going for it or trying to go for it a little bit in the January transfer window. And that's smart. You know, doing loan deals with obligations or options is smart, because if you don't go up, you know, you don't have the financial burden. But if the loan fees or whatever are what it takes to get you there, you know, you'll be swimming in cash. So, yeah, Monday night's going to be fascinating for the title race. And yeah, Farke gave it the whole, we talk about big games. We don't like to overinterpret any game. Norwich was a big game. Yeah, they're all big games, but there's big games and there's big games. And this is a big game, Joe.
It is a big game. And that's why I'm going to be missing it. As interesting a 0-0 as I imagine it'll be. You know, I just feel like there's a different thing that I've got to bring over the line.
What, your body?
Yes. Yeah. I will be running a half marathon, not in the UK. So, you know, look, when it was booked, the fixtures weren't out. If I'd known, that it was going to be like this?
Listen, if your old friend Victor Orta gets on the phone and says, "Come over, look, there's a half marathon in my hometown. You know, you can do the run. We'll go out for some ham." You just can't say no, can you?
Oh man, just imagining Victor saying, "I'm not going to do it," but imagine you wanted me
Coward.
to do it. He's the master of big ham. If he did ask, I think I would entertain it. I just have a feeling he won't ask.
No.
And even if I do get in touch with him, I don't think that he'll be extending an invitation.
I think you'd get as far as Eve. You'd say Yorkshire Eve, and that's as far as you'd get.
You think I'd introduce myself as Joe from the Yorkshire Evening Post? Okay. I don't think I would. No, yeah. So it'll be Graham and Lee at Turf Moor on Monday night. So yeah, well, I really do not envy the pair of you again, because if I'm looking at the weather forecast for Seville on Monday, it's looking like it's going to rain during the day, but it's going to be 18 degrees.
It's going to be raining goals in Lancashire, so more fool you. I've now decided it's going to be 5-3 to Leeds United. That's my prediction. No, it clearly won't be. But I'll tell you what I am expecting.
It is going to be. It's going to be raining rain in Lancashire on Monday night.
But it's not going to dampen my spirits because the atmosphere, I think, is going to be really good. I took a look at atmosphere this week because a few people had talked about Elland Road being flat at times this season, and even in the derby game against Sheffield Wednesday, it wasn't. Elland Road wasn't at its best, and we know that Elland Road is absolutely at its best when there's a lot on the line, when Leeds are up against it, when backs are to the wall. That's like in relegation battle in the Premier League. There were times when Elland Road was just completely unbelievable. The playoff semi-final against Norwich at home last year, loads of jeopardy. The stadium was absolutely incredible when they walked out. The away fans always make an unbelievable noise. That's kind of the nature of traveling supports generally, but the Leeds fans are particularly good on the road. And Elland Road, like we shouldn't paint it as something it's not. It's still louder than most of the grounds that I've been to, and the fans sing more regularly than a lot of home fans at other grounds I've been to. But they and Burnley and Sheffield United all seem to be suffering the same kind of malaise, that there's almost an expectation that you'll win. There's frustration at teams coming and parking the bus, and there's not a lot of jeopardy. So fans are finding it harder to get into. And sometimes the football's not very exciting to watch. You know, Burnley fans have said that. I haven't heard that complaint so much from Sheffield United fans, but Bramall Lane was as dead as a dodo until they were 2-0 up against Norwich. And somebody that goes to every game told me it's been really flat this season. People are leaving in droves before the final whistle, even when they're winning. That was the case against Norwich. And yeah, it was absolutely freezing, but Chris Wilder noticed it and pointed it out during the game. You know, had a bit of a laugh and a quip with somebody behind his dugout. So all those three clubs are kind of finding the same thing. But I think it's safe to say that when Leeds United visit Turf Moor on Monday night, that there'll be an atmosphere.
Yeah, I think there will be. On that topic, then, what is your genuine prediction for Monday night?
I'm going to say Burnley 0, Leeds United 1.
That's a bold prediction. I'm not so bullish. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to break Burnley down. And I'm going to stick with my 0-0 prediction, which again is not a bad result at all. I think when Burnley have conceded 9 goals in 28 games this season, that's a phenomenal record defensively. That's no fluke. I think the only team at this stage in like English football history to have conceded fewer is Jose Mourinho's Chelsea in that 2004-2005 season when they conceded, I think it was like 15 in 38 Premier League games. At this stage, they'd only conceded 8. So, yeah, it's going to be a formidable place to go. It's going to be a difficult task. But Leeds are, 12 games unbeaten. They had the better of Burnley at Elland Road despite the result. They've got the vast majority of players and key players available. Yes, Pascal Struijk is probably not going to be involved. But, look at the form that Manor Solomon and Dan James are in.
I was going to say, the Manor Solomon that's playing against Burnley this time is not the Manor Solomon that played against Burnley last time. Even, aside from his slip that cost Leeds, he's just a different proposition now. And you can see how confident he is in his ability, in his body's ability as well. Dan James is flying. Ramazani has got to be one of the most in-form substitutes in the Championship right now. Well, in-form and deadly substitutes in the Championship, because he is coming off the bench and looking really sharp. Against Norwich, that little phase of play where he nicks the ball, fights for it, keeps it, runs away from his marker and draws a foul. Was it Marcondes? I can't remember. Draws a foul, breathing space. Leeds can take their time with the free kick. Just excellent. And if he gets the ball anywhere within 25 yards, he's showing his ball striking ability, isn't he? And he's coming really close or scoring. So, great player to have on the bench. Willie Gnonto, again, is due a goal at some point. Ao Tanaka is starting to look more dangerous. I just think Leeds might find a way through. However, if they concede first, I think they'll lose 1-0. But I just got a little feeling that they might just find a way through.
They might just nick something. Yeah, I mean, it is very much a possibility, in the same way that when Burnley came to Elland Road, they nicked something and then held out. I think Leeds' defence is just as good as Burnley's. It's just that, they've conceded fewer. And we can get into the reasons for that. We have discussed the reasons for that, or at least the reasons that I believe to be the case, or we believe to be the case. If you look at the expected goals conceded, Leeds actually have a better record. They've conceded 19.07 XG from their 28 games. Burnley have conceded 23.5. So they should have conceded 14 more goals than they actually have. But for whatever reason, i.e. James Trafford saving penalties left, right and centre, and just generally being a England level goalkeeper, or opponents being less effective with their finishing ability, probably because Burnley's defensive setup negates the quality of shots that their opponents are taking. For that reason, or for those reasons, they've actually conceded way fewer. I want to do a little quiz with you, Graham, just for a second. Okay. And it's definitely not the quiz like one that you said on Twitter yesterday about certain things, which we won't get into. About your nighttime activity.
Big data.
That's some big data, all right, yeah. It's to do with XG, actually, which is part of the thing that you mentioned in that tweet. XG is only part of it. Who do you think in the Leeds United team has generated the most XG this season? Stop laughing. It's not funny.
Okay. Brendan Aronson?
Correct. You are right. Yeah, Brendan Aronson.
You are gutted. Oh, you are gutted. Look at how crestfallen. Look at his little face.
I'm not gutted at all. 7.79 XG Brendan's had, which is a lot. He's getting into goal scoring positions. Who's had the most shots on target?
The most shots on target. I don't think it's Brendan. I want to say Dan James or Joel Peru. No, not Joel Peru. Dan James.
Correct. 2 from 2.
Oh, Unbelievable.
23 shots on target from Dan James this season, which is the most by a Leeds United player. Who's got the best conversion rate?
Joel Peru.
Oh, you went early there.
Oh,
And
is it largely wrong? Is it Peru?
After 2 correct guesses,
Oh no.
you started to fancy yourself a bit there, didn't you?
I've got cocky. Is it Ramazani?
No, it's a player who's got 5 goals from 26 shots, which puts the conversion rate at 19.26%, which is very, very good.
Manor Solomon.
It's Manor Solomon, yeah.
Wow. Fair play,
Yeah,
son.
Joel Peru, in your defense, which I'm not doing very often, although I imagine one day I will be in court. Your Honor, he was joking. In your defense, Joel Peru is not far behind. I think his conversion rate's something like 18 point something percent.
Yeah, I definitely had 18 point something percent in my head.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Do you know who's had the most shots off target this season? I do.
What, for Leeds or just in
for
Championship
Leeds.
in general?
For Leeds.
I don't, because it's an absolutely pointless stat.
Brendan Aronson. Do you know who's had the most shots blocked this season?
Hang on. This doesn't happen on the chase. You know, Bradley Walsh doesn't start answering questions from the contestants. Right, I wasn't done yet. Who's had the most shots blocked? Actually, I do know that one. That's Willie Gnonto.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, come on. Final one, because clearly you're getting bored of this, and I'm gonna have to move it on like a child with various toys. Okay, come and play with this one now. Come on. Yeah. Most successful passes completed in the final third.
Oh, that's tough. So it's not passes into the final third, it's passes completed in the final third.
Well, it's passes that finish in the final third. So they can go into the final third. That counts as a successful pass in the final third.
They can be from the final third also into the final third. Okay, yes. In that case, I'm going to say Ao Tanaka.
Wow, 3 out of 4. Well done. Yeah, Ao Tanaka with 328.
God.
And the most impressive aspect of that is that he maintained an 85% accuracy in doing so, which is a bit higher, 5 or 10% higher than most of the other players who've completed the number of passes that he has as well in the final third. So, I just thought it'd be a nice little.
I am the Ao Tanaka of this quiz. That's how good I am.
Actually, Ao Tanaka's better because he got better than 3 out of 4. He got higher than 75%.
Did you enjoy Daniel Farke's impassioned defense of Tanaka and his 2 fouls against Norwich?
Yes and no. Like I'm over managers defending their players because that's your job. Like you're supposed to do that.
Yeah,
like, you're supposed to say that your players can do no wrong. Apart from when it's completely untenable, when I don't know your goalkeeper's chucked 2 in,
or you headbutt someone,
Yeah, that's it's got to meet a really high threshold for your manager to criticize you publicly, provided that they're a reasonable human being, which not all managers are. I liked his defense because he needs to get behind his player, but what else
I was kind of more getting at, did you think he should have been sent off?
Right. Okay. Well, there was actually so these things called words, if you put them in sequence, right, and you say that, then that comes across as a different question to did you enjoy defense?
Sometimes I just feel like there's a real disconnect and you just don't know me at all. You just don't get me.
Did I think he should have been sent off? I think he was lucky to not be sent off. I do think Farke was right in saying that he's made 2 fouls. Should he be sent off for both? I think the second one is a yellow card offence. The first one isn't. It's just that he was already shown a yellow card by the referee very early on.
Which the referee got to the right decision, but he wasn't able to show his working out. So
yes,
he would have failed GCSE maths.
Not necessarily, because that is how I passed GCSE maths.
Well, you're looking at someone else's paper and putting down the right answer.
No, actually, it was eavesdropping on whenever one of the teachers would sort of go around and explain a part of the exam paper, and then that sort of everything then coming together in your head about that certain question. So I didn't even have to embarrass myself by asking for help. I just benefited from it.
Yeah, I at the time thought, "Whoa, dearie me, Starboy has blotted his copybook here." But when the referee played advantage, I thought, "Oh, he's safe. He's not going to bring it back now and yellow card him." Because I had it in my head that he couldn't, and I think technically he can, but I think the law of the game suggests that you shouldn't. That if you wave play on, you shouldn't come back and give a yellow if a player has attempted to or impeded a promising attack. It's a different kettle of fish when it's the if it's violent conduct. You know, if he's gone in with both feet and he's left Kenny McLean facing life on one leg, then maybe you could see, you know, the red coming out. But really interesting that Farke actually brought it up at halftime with some spooky powers of foresight in saying that Norwich's only chance here is if you give them a chance by getting sent off. So don't get a second yellow. Because it was Tanaka, Byram. Was there someone else on a yellow?
I want to say yes, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
There was a few, wasn't there? There was a couple of yellows dished out. So apart from that, in the Norwich game, there weren't a lot of talking points, were there? It was just like a pretty routine kind of performance. Junior, I think, was fantastic. But Jayden Bogle, I can't believe we haven't mentioned him in the pod. He was superb. I mean, it wasn't just how much he ran, and I'd love to see his running stats for that game because it felt like he was just on the run the entire game. But what he did with the ball was excellent. Like, so many good passes, incisive passes. His link up with James was excellent. He gets into really good positions. You know, I love it when he drives into the area on the angle, you know, from the corner of the penalty box heading towards goal. That's brought a lot of chances and a couple of goals this season. So super impressive, I thought.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to cotton on to the idea that Jayden Bogle was actually a very shrewd signing at £5 million. Yeah, he took a little bit of time to acclimatise, but you know, most players do. You're playing in a different setup, different team, different style, and he's starting to show his quality. He's got a real good partnership down that right-hand side with Dan James. He works really well in tandem with Joe Rodon, and Dan James was saying after the game, you know, there's a in that sort of three down the right. So Rodon is the right centre back, Bogle is the right back, Dan James is the right winger, and then you've got Brendan Aronson sort of coming into the wide areas to create an overload. That four, they kind of say to each other, like, look, if we win our battle down this right hand side today, we win the game. And I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Is, you know, mini games, you know, games within games. You know, let's win our battle collectively here, and we give ourselves the best chance, which is true because look at how much has come down that right hand side in recent weeks. It's been
they are difference makers. You know, they really are. I mean, it stands to reason that if 6 or 7 of your players get the best of their direct opponent, you've got a really good chance of winning the game. But when the players are Dan James and Jayden Bogle, who can produce end product, if they get the better of their opposite number, then you stand an excellent chance of winning the game. And it's that whole debate, you know, that the Leeds felt they could sign a right back who would produce more in terms of end product than Archie was able to at right back. You know, not a better player than Archie Gray. There's no that will never ever be argued. Certainly doesn't have a higher ceiling than Archie Gray, but in terms of that specific role, possibly a better right back for the Championship promotion bid than Archie Gray. Because if you have goals and assists from right back, goals and assists from right wing, the same at left back from Junior and the same from left wing with Solomon or Ramazani, then you're giving yourself a really good chance. And Leeds have a really nice balance with the goal scoring this season. You know, Peru has got a decent amount of goals. Aronson, a lot of goals. He's going to finish the season with way more than Ruter got. And then both flanks are producing. So I think all we want really now is for a few more from Tanaka, at least one from Rothwell, a few more from centre back. You know, Rodon has got to get one of those headers into the top corner at some point. Just turns into a 50p head in the box. Whereas
apart from the Derby game, that was a good routine.
Yeah. He's excellent at defensive headers. He wins so many aerial duels, beats a lot of centre forwards in the air, but then in the box, you know, he gets first contact so many times, doesn't he? And just the direction is the issue. But I think if I could pick any player to score the winner against Burnley, who do you think I'd pick?
Tanaka?
No.
Ilan Meslier?
No, he'd be my second.
No, I've got it. Lee Chapman. Oh, actually, you know what's great? I think people will love this. You know how you spoke to Brian Dean as part of that Lee Chapman piece?
Yeah.
We when we pulled up to park at Ellen Road on, was it it was the Sunday game against Sheffield Wednesday. We pulled up, we parked next to Brian Dean, and he was on the driver's side and you were in the passenger side in my car, and you just blanked him.
I didn't even
realize.
I was to be honest, you know, when I get to the ground, I'm in the zone at that stage, so you know it's difficult for me to acknowledge people.
That's the man who scored the first ever Premier League goal, and you just
he is that man. Yeah,
you just ignored him.
The player I would like to score the goal at Burnley, if I could choose, if I could hand pick a player, would be Mateo Joseph.
Okay, yeah, I mean that would be a great moment for him.
Getting him going again in terms of goals and confidence would be massive for Leeds. Absolutely massive. I still think we talk about it every week, so we won't go into it, but I still think that he provides a bit more in a 90-minute performance than Peru does. It's just that he's not scoring goals. And I think he just needs one big one to get him off and running.
Yeah, and I maintain I do think he'll get one. But we did discuss that last week, so you know, let's not go over old ground just yet. We're not.
It's not quite my topic.
Material. It's not quite my topic. Yes. I'll tell you what was your topic in the matchday program against Sheffield Wednesday. There was an Tanaka interview which you really liked. It said that he had a meet up in London with a few of his international teammates, and rightly or wrongly, I think we've got this perception of Tanaka that, you know, he's a very cultured sort of high society individual. Probably visited a restaurant that we've never even heard of with, you know, presumably Kaoru Mitoma from Brighton. But wouldn't it be great if they just went to Five Guys or something?
Yeah, regardless of whether we'd heard of it or not, we certainly couldn't afford to eat there, I think would be more the point. But as long as he wasn't there with anyone, you know, who's maybe plying their trade in Scotland, you know, then I'm fine with it. Yeah,
I'm guessing that for anyone who doesn't realise that Graham is referencing Celtic players there, that come on, just, you know, park it for 1 week. I know you had a difficult result this week. I know you only put 5 past Fraserburgh. Yeah, come on.
You know, do you reckon for Celtic loving Leeds fans that Rangers against Man United was one of the most uncomfortable nights of their lives because there wasn't a result there that would make them happy at all?
Yeah, I mean, there's a meme that goes around and it's like some guy at a sports game in America and he's holding up a sign which says, I just hope both teams lose. I imagine that is sort of the the feeling that they probably had.
Absolutely. You know, somebody revealed to me on Twitter this week, after that Rangers flag appeared, really strangely, it must have been Rangers fans down in England for the game and they managed to get themselves tickets for Ellen Road and thought it would be a good idea to bring their flag and put it up in the cup, which is very, very odd indeed.
Brave,
but odd. That the cup used to have like dueling chants from one side and the other, and they used to chant. Some of them used to chant Rangers, and the others would reply Celtic. And there was other things as well that they would chant. I wonder what like the modern day equivalent is that you could have either fans in the Kop or the South Stand disagreeing over in a chant.
Niners, Niners, Ravens.
I don't know if I can see it catching on.
No.
I just don't know.
There
Like
was a
when
kid.
when I was in primary school, there was a big fight. Some older kids got into a massive fight over whether Michael Jackson was better or the boy band Bros. Some kids actually got into a fist fight about it. Honestly, you'd think in Northern Ireland there's enough to be fighting about without letting pop music come into it.
I'm guessing that. I mean, who's Bros? I don't even want to know. I know which I know which side I probably would have been on because I've heard of one and not the other. There was actually a kid at my school in my history class who, during sort of heads down hard study periods, he would him and his mate would always go Celtic, and the teacher couldn't tell where it was coming from because it was at the back of the class, and then somebody else from another area of the room would go Rangers, and occasionally there'd be just like a Aberdeen, and yeah, but bless him, the teacher was absolutely helpless because he was just like, whoever it is, stop it now, and we just couldn't. It was the funniest thing. Should we discuss as a final topic the rumor that circulated yesterday relating to Kelechi Iheanacho, or rather, should we say Kelechi Iheanacho? No.
I always have this horrible panic that starts to rise in my throat when you say things like, should we discuss the rumor that circulated? And I'm just ready to have a denial on the tip of my tongue every time. It doesn't make a lot of sense, this one, as far as links go. There's been lots of links in January. There always is. And some of them you think, that doesn't get me up out of my armchair to even go and check. Wages, for one. How his season has gone, for another. The fact that Leeds are monitoring Patrick Bamford to see if they need a striker, but we know that Farke is happy with Peru and Joseph as a 1-2 right now. So I think unlikely.
I think unlikely as well. Knowing what we know about sort of what his wage packet was at Leicester last season, you can't imagine he'll have taken too much of a wage cut at Sevilla this year, where he's played nine games in La Liga, hasn't scored, hasn't assisted. Yes, he's got 3 goals in 2 Copa del Rey games, but I believe they were against very, very much lower league opposition. Hasn't played regularly recently. And yeah, just, what Farke was saying about, you need quality. And there's no doubt that, he has that. But you need, you need character as well. You need affordability, and certainly in the affordability category, you'd have to think that it would be a difficult one to see Leeds going for, considering how well thought out the rest of their business has been. And also last season, he got 5 goals in 23 championship games for Leicester. Like, he didn't exactly set the world on fire. And 4 of those were in consecutive games. So there was a good portion of 20 appearances where he just didn't score.
I just don't see them doing a striker unless Bamford is really crocked, or somehow they find a unicorn who's affordable and is going to guarantee 10 goals between now and the end of the season. Somebody who actually starts almost straight away ahead of Peru. That's the only way I can see it happening, and it just feels unlikely.
Yeah, it does. It does feel unlikely indeed. That's all from us on the Inside Ellen Road podcast this week. We'll be back again. Well, actually, when will we be back? Because next week with the transfer deadline.
Well, the transfer deadline's the 3rd, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the 3rd. So I'm thinking, I think we'll probably be back roughly the same time next week.
We'll be back next week.
Ahead of the game at Cardiff on the 1st of February. So yeah, until then, take care and bye for now.
Bye-bye.